Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind Body and Spirit Show. I am your host, Matt Belair, and today I am super stoked to have today's guest. He is an author of several books, personal development expert, podcast host, presenter for Sky Sports. He does it all. He's truly amazing. I wanted to have a longer podcast. Super stoked to have him on. Welcome to the show, Tony Wrighton.
Hey, Matt. Thank you very much. Super intro. Wow. What about that? Yeah. Good to be here, man.
Did I pronounce your name right? I don't have that UK accent. I'm not sure how it's really supposed to sound.
No, we don't say, don't worry, I don't say Wrighton. It's just Wrighton. Yeah, that's good.
Nice, man. Well, so, yeah, I really enjoyed reading your bio. You're doing a ton of things. I don't know how you have time for it all. Can you just give the audience a little background? You know, most of the audience is from the States. And so do you want to give them a little background of like who you are, how you got to where you are today, writing books, doing seminars, being a host of a prominent sports broadcasting? You're doing a lot of things.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, so I've been a kind of radio and TV presenter for quite a long time over here. And always just kind of pootled along, doing my thing, enjoying what I was doing. And about kind of 12, 13 years ago, I kind of thought, maybe there's more to this. I actually felt like I wasn't as happy as I used to be. So I started studying the skills of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And only after a month or two of studying this, I was like, the linguistic part of it is very interesting. And I thought, you know what, I could use some of these skills on my radio show. Now, at the time, I had a kind of drive time show, quite a lot of people listening to the show. It was in the north of England here in the UK. So I started using these linguistic techniques on my show. And after a couple of months, and I was kind of getting more and more bold about using these techniques every day. After a couple of months, the boss called me into his office and he said, I don't know what you've been doing on your show, but your listening figures have gone through the roof. And at this point, I thought, wow, this stuff is good. These NLP techniques are great. So that's kind of what started me down this field of personal improvement and self-development. Now I do a podcast called Zestology. And my day job, as you say, is a presenter on Sky Sports. And it's a nice kind of blend. And it all came from just trying out these cheeky little techniques on my show.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, I'm definitely familiar with NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I highly recommend everybody read just a basics books because it's a little bit about how your brain works, how language is understood, and how people will receive it. So really powerful techniques, and then to begin experimenting, seeing how it works, even to a live, a broad audience is pretty amazing. So do you want to talk about either your podcast or your books? Like, what are you writing about? What are you most excited about sharing and teaching as you continue to grow and learn and have amazing guests on your podcast?
The thing I'm most excited about at the moment is the stuff I'm doing on Zestology, because in terms of the NLP books, I loved NLP, but I always found it quite inaccessible. There's a lot of jargon. The name NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, you know what it's like? It's just like, it's a bad name. I think if it was invented now, they'd call it Neuro Hacking. And I think that would be a much better name. But yeah, I decided with the books to try and take these NLP skills and make them very usable for people who hadn't known much about NLP in the past. So each technique takes a minute or less in the books. And then more recently, I started a podcast on energy. And I guess that is what is energizing me at the moment. I really enjoy doing it. It's kind of my personal journey. And that's why I was so looking forward to chatting to you, because I know there's a lot of kind of, you are outrageous in terms of the kind of energetic stuff that you get up to. And I didn't have any energy for a while. I went on holiday to the jungle in the Philippines. I got very ill. And I came back and I spent 3 months in bed. Couldn't even walk down the street, had numb patches on my face. I was going to see some of the best neurologists in this city and no one knew what was going on. And at that kind of deepest, darkest point, I thought, if I ever start getting well enough that I can present a podcast, I'll do a podcast, have a bit of fun along the way, speak to people like you and great experts in various fields, and then find out a little bit more about all the different things I could do to live with more energy. And maybe some other people can get some ideas as well. So now I'm sharing that consciousness for the greater good and feeling good about it.
That's amazing. That's really interesting. I didn't know about the challenging experience with getting sick. I know that a lot of people have had that experience. So Dr. Joe Dispenza had to heal his body and he said that he was a chiropractor, and he said that if he could heal his body, do you know who Dr. Joseph Dispenza is?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. He's he wrote that body called, is it called Heal Your, what is it called?
He has Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself,
Yeah.
and You Are the Placebo.
The placebo.
Yeah, so
he read that, and he comes to London quite a lot as well. In fact, some of my friends are super into him, and I'd love to see him live.
He's epic live. He's got so much energy, and I love him because he's basically got the balls to tell people in the audience who are doctors, who are physicians, who have terminal illnesses, that you can heal yourself through your mind. You know what I mean? Like, I can say that, and I'm still like a little nervous about saying it. He's like, you can do this, and he's got a lot of science to back it up, and a lot of people doing it. And basically, at the end of the day, it's meditate an hour on your health. Meditate whatever you go into the void and do, but he's bringing like the explanation why. So, but he got severely ill and healed himself. So it's interesting how many people you go down and then you reassess because you can't do anything, and so it kind of takes you off that hamster wheel and allows you to just assess from a different angle. And so do you find that moving into this podcast is energizing you, like kind of steering a little bit more towards passion? Like, what do you feel is the difference for you from before the illness, after, like the main switch?
Well, I mean, exactly that. Realizing that what was going on in my body was actually a manifestation of what was going on in my mind. And that's why it's so awesome to speak to you, because, I feel like one of the things I'm very lucky about is I'm a presenter on Sky Sports, and therefore some people come to my podcast who would never, ever think about these kind of concepts normally, necessarily. It's just not on their radar. But I get the chance to introduce something a little bit wild and crazy, and it maybe seems a little bit less crazy or alternative because it's coming from me, who they know from the sports field. And that's why it's so cool what you're doing as well, because, when people who, we're not kind of sitting around in flowery robes chanting Om all the time, but we are saying, look, you might want to try X, Y, and Z, because that could be different from going to the doctor and getting a prescription for a pharmaceutical, and it might help you more. When people like you do that with your hipster beard and all your adventure experiences and your near death trekking to was it Everest?
Yeah, it's Everest.
By the way, because I've just been climbing a mountain last week. And this is like my new massive passion, which is why I've been excited to talk to you about it so much, because I climbed up the highest mountain in North Africa last week. And what an exhilarating experience. It was just incredible. So what happened with you?
Oh, man, it's a long story. I don't want to take away from the podcast, so I'll give the short version. But there's two peaks, and I'm a photographer, so actually one of the most beautiful hikes is Annapurna. So I was like, I want to go to Everest. So there's a Gokuri, which again is number 2, and then Everest, as far as photos goes, is 3. So I discovered I could go to Gokuri Peak, down, and then up to Everest, and it was sunny all day, every day for like 6 days up. And then I get to the peak, and they're like, you can go take the photos now. And it was late in the evening, or wait till the morning. So I was like, let's wait till the morning. We're pooched. Then we wake up in the morning, and there's this mist, and you can't see anything. And I've never been so angry in my life. And that's when I learned a few things about happiness and choice, because I was pissed. And so I have to trek down that day, and then we start trekking up, and it starts to snow. So it snows a little bit that day. The next day it snows a crap ton. And they're like, if you don't go to the next point, you're not going to see, because I had to fly out to Thailand, you're not going to see Everest. And I was like, this isn't happening. So I forced my way through the snow and basically start trekking through knee and waist deep snow, exert a shit ton of energy, like, 2 days out from, base camp, and my body starts to shut down, and it gets really, really cold. And then, again, long story short, I was doing psychology techniques to myself to, like, you have lots of energy or whatever. And then there came a point where I told myself, it was my voice just saying, it's okay, just go to sleep, you'll be fine. And that was like, I knew if I went to sleep, I was in the middle of a friggin' snowstorm away from anything. And I was like, oh shit. So, kept trekking up and got through that experience, got hellied out. Like, I made it through the next day. Some things happened. And the doctor's like, your body, like, cause you were exerting so much energy at altitude, if you've ever gone through waist deep snow for 10 minutes, it's so challenging. So
that's altitude actually it does make you feel very tired. And one of our guys couldn't get to the top of the mountain, and he 200 meters from the top, he was like, guys, I'm just gonna have a little lie down. I just want to have a little sleep. And our trekking leader, he was like, you're going straight down. That's altitude sickness. So it sounds quite similar to what you had there, but yours sounds more extreme.
Yeah, it was that, and it was mixed with cold. So yeah. So it's super intense. But I'm stoked that you're getting into climbing. So for you in this transition, what have you learned around having more energy, more passion, more zest for life? Like, do you have any tips for the listeners on? Because a lot of time we can get stuck in our careers, right, which are happy, but we don't have time to reassess. It can go 6 months or 10 years before we even consider having a look at it.
Yeah, I've learned that the first thing you need to do is create the space in your mind for your body to flourish. And I think in some ways we have less space in our heads than ever before. You know, one of the lovely things about being up a mountain in Morocco is there's no Wi-Fi, there's no 3G, and you're out of contact with the outside world. So guess what? We're all sitting around having dinner together in this little mountain refuge, talking to each other for once, rather than posting photos on Instagram. And I like to think of myself as relatively present and conscious anyway, but it's so hard to be when you're getting messages all the time. And it's so hard to be focused on one thing. And I think that we're not really very good at multitasking, but some of us wear our ability to multitask as a kind of badge of honor. And when you start to switch off and do less, and that would definitely include meditating, adventure sports, which is a kind of meditation itself, because you've got to be so switched on in the moment. If you're not, you're going to make a mistake that could lead to you dying or whatever it is. Those kind of intense activities which take you outside your comfort zone, and just being more present to what you can see and hear and feel and smell and taste, those kind of things, that gives you your body a chance to rejuvenate and just live in the moment and feel more energy. So yeah, I think that's the main thing. But then loads of other stuff, you know, I mean, some nutritional advice. I mean, I've had some great people on in terms of nutrition. A lot of them talk about the importance of cutting the sugar and eating more good fats. So that's been an interesting one. And then I take a whole host of different supplements every day as well, which is, some of them are quite weird and wonderful, but I enjoy that for a little bit of extra energy as well.
Awesome, man. Well, I love how you touched on the social detox, because that's been coming up a lot. And we're trying to cultivate focus, right? And so when you hear all these updates, so, you know, let's just blast off real quick here. Like, you know, shut off all the Facebook updates on your phone, shut off the Instagram updates on your phone, and maybe just look at it once or twice, like a day max. Because if you time how much you're looking at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you know, and I just talked with a native elder here of the Zuli tribe, and you know, he talks about this was a cosmic awakening, talking about aliens and all this kind of stuff. And he was like, our culture has known about aliens forever. We call them star people. Like, this is not new. Like, you white people are like just figuring this out. He's like, the biggest thing that's happened when you guys tried to come here was they call it artificial intelligence. When we're looking at our phone, you look at your people, you know, and he's a native. Like, he's the elder for the entire nation of like southern USA. He's like the gatekeeper.
Wow.
Yeah. So he goes things with other native like lineages, but it's so simple, but it makes so much sense. He's like, you got to get off your phone. He's like, our people sit in circles and everybody's the same, but we're there, right? How many people are having not one another? They're still on their phone. And when I'm guilty of that, I really create a strategy to not do that, because it's, you know, that feeling and that presence of being on the mountain. Number one, you're in nature. Number two, nobody has the choice. Not one person is breaking that focus, right? And then you get a real deeper connection. So, you know, maybe like when you're having dinner with people, throw your phone on airplane mode, or some restaurants put it in a box, you know what I mean? It's all going to be, the emails, everything's going to be waiting for you. So I think culture, whole point, but massive power, you know what I mean? Because
I think it is. And I think it's kind of, it's weird because, you know, the younger you are listening to this now, the less time you will have known in your life that it was actually possible to live without technology. But I remember like writing letters to my friends. You know, you wouldn't dream of doing such a thing now. And I'm not actually saying the writing letters bit is better or worse, but I do know that for the last few years, probably 4 or 5 years, I have at least 2 hours a day switched everything off, all technology. So that's phones, emails. It's anything that can connect me to other people. WhatsApp messages, texts, Skype, whatever. And normally, almost every day, those 2 hours are the best 2 hours of my day. I've found some things to help me do that as well. One of the things that has helped me detox from the extreme kind of social browsing that you were mentioning before, because there's more than 1 billion people on Facebook worldwide, and on average each person who has Facebook uses it for 53 minutes a day. I mean, that shows you what a massive company it is, because Facebook wasn't even around 15 years ago, and now most people in the world who've got Facebook are using it for almost an hour a day. So there's an app called Freedom. Have you heard of it? Yeah, it's great.
No.
It's a website and an app, and you can tailor it, and it will work with iPhone, and I think it works with Android as well. You can tailor it so it will only allow you access to certain apps and connectivity at certain times of the day. So I've got it set up so that I can be a bit of a news junkie at times, but I just get lost reading ridiculous articles about which I don't really care. So I've got it so I cannot check certain newspapers on my phone at any point. And then some things like Facebook, I can only check it between like 8 and 10 in the morning, for example. And so you can set up different time zones, you can set different time slots, and it works so well. So Freedom app is pretty good.
I love that, man. I was talking to my homie Jay Campbell, and he's, an author and Kicking Butt podcast, doing all kinds of things. And he talks to me. He got like about, how do I grow my connection or whatever, like be more peaceful. And I was like, man, it's like, you got to have like an hour a day, like, for yourself. So he started to do that, and he shuts everything off. And he's like, it's my favorite hour of the day now, because he's busy, man, and he gives himself that hour. And I was like, that's what I would recommend. So it's so important. But what I'm thinking here is like, either the external world, this social world, this false world, it doesn't exist, right? You're looking into a screen. Look at somebody who looks at a computer. You're getting sucked into an alternate reality that could be anywhere. You'd be looking at news, you could be looking at porn, you could be looking at sports, but it's not real. So you go out and sit by a tree, that's real. You know what I mean? That's important. That's like earth harmonization, all kinds of stuff. So I'm thinking it's like, you're either training your mind like you're saying, okay, this is the time, or the external world is training you, and it's happening. They, in the really high level, they're calling it artificial intelligence. It's sucking you into a false reality, and you're disconnecting more over here, and you're going through these emotional states, but none of it is real. It's even, the real world is, a lot of people, when you get into deep concepts, it's like, is this even real? We're in a matrix, so, but then you're doubling down into like some sort of other thing. So it's a really important thing.
Did you read about that Japanese guy who married like a computer? It's like he's built this robot, and he was like, she just does what I say, so I want to marry her.
Oh, dude, it's coming. Like that movie Her is like just around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is so around the corner. That's the thing. The rate of technological change now is so rapid that that kind of thing, wow, it's not far away.
Yeah, well, I remember reading this thing a long time ago. It was Past Civilizations to Predict the Future. Yeah. And so, it talks about writing, and then the printed, like the alphabet, writing, basic communication, like the whatever the SOS, or not SOS, but the old school. Then it was media, and then the new one's the internet. And it showed basically how technology is it's doubling faster and faster.
Right.
And you know what I mean? The version of our first Nintendo, right? So the virtual reality is going to double and double and double and double. And we're talking about space travel, everything. Yeah. So,
I mean, the one thing I would say to people is, on this final day of our final walk up the mountain, we got up at 3, and we left the refuge at 4, and we had crampons on, and we had like a head torch. And I mean, I must admit, after about 10 minutes, I was like, I don't know if I could do this, because my heart was like this, like beating so fast, because it does beat faster, doesn't it, when you're up at altitude? I was like, I'm not sure if I can do this. But eventually I kind of settled down, and there were 8 of us all kind of trudging slowly up the mountain. And after about an hour, I was right at the back. We were going fairly slowly, so I had the chance to stop and turn around. And it was still completely dark, but the moon was quite bright on that night. And it was just kind of illuminating these snowy mountains. It was kind of a mix of snow and rock. And I could see the outline of the mountain we just walked up so well. And I just stopped, and I looked at it, and I thought, this is truly living. It is such a beautiful sight. And I think it's important to remember that when you get sucked into the screens for a long time, most of the things that we love in this world more than anything just do not involve screens. Pretty much everything. Think about communicating with your friends, eating good food, being out in nature, having sex. All these things don't involve screens. And if sex involves screens for you, maybe you want to get out a bit more. but I think it is important to escape the screens. And then certainly, you know, that connection with a more primal way of being that I felt up the mountain was just awesome.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. And even if that's the one thing people get out of this podcast, it's super important. I just posted a link on my Facebook how Japan, I can't remember what they call it, but they say they're studying scientific benefits for just being in the forest an hour a day. And they're proving how it is everything, every single thing. And it just makes, you know, to get connected to the earth. We're so disconnected, and we, you know, I could go and you could go probably forever on how that's, you know, not ideal. Get into the forest, you know, get into nature, because you're really connected to the land, and that's real. You know what I mean? Go hug a tree, you know, that's it. It's important stuff. So however you're going to make it, but we're like, I don't have time for that. I got to get up and I got to run to work and I got to get my coffee and I got to go in a building and I got to be in a cubicle and I got to run, you know, you don't have that time. So, you know, that's why even like a really powerful vacation like that, you see it and then you experience it. It's a vibration. You know, like, oh my God, this is amazing. All that other shit is like so secondary, right? But if you don't see it, then it's, you know, then you don't know it exists, right?
Yeah, well, and it's called forest bathing, isn't it? When people go into the forest.
Yes.
And it's a great idea, isn't it? You know, and it is true. When you get out, I mean, one of the issues where I am now, I don't know how much you can see out that window, but actually, you might, if I just turn it around a little bit, you might be able to see. I'm right in central London, and actually you can see Europe's tallest building there. I don't know if you can see it very well. But anyway, Europe's tallest building is there, but we are right in the center of London. The problem is I can go whole days without seeing that much greenery, you know, it's not ideal. So I have to compensate by having a lot of greenery in my house instead.
Nice. We're gonna have to get you relocated right into the mountains. You know, we'll get the podcast going, and then you're like, "Look, I'm gonna do it from here, and I'll send it over." You know, we'll get that level of virtuality.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. I know. I have thought about. I mean, do you live in a city or outside a city?
Right now, I'm in Sedona, so almost always I'm in the mountains. So Sedona is like a vortex for like all the weirdness, future technologies, like everything. Like every single person like sees angels and UFOs and like future tech. Pyramids, or like everyone has these mega crystals, you know. So it's like here it's like, you don't know aliens exist? Oh, like here, we'll go up here and we'll go to the vortex and we'll look at and you say boom, 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 and you look at it and you're like, I don't know, man. So
that sounds like such an awesome place, man. Yeah.
Huh?
You know, because I think one of the reasons that I like living in London is because of the sense of community. And, you know, community has been proven as being the most important thing for human beings. The moment you take away community, well, what do? I mean, essentially, that's how we punish people, solitary confinement, you know. And I always think that I get that great sense of community from being in the center of this big city where I grew up as well. But it sounds like you've got that, even though you're kind of outside the city, and you're not off the grid, but you're in the country, but you've still got a fantastic sense of community there. That's the dream, mate. That's great.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And they have no light pollution. So you have to actually shut off the lights in the city. So you can go up to the vortex spots, look at the city, and it's all dark. It's
wow.
It's such an interesting place, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So they talk about light pollution. And also when you get into the hippie side of things, you know, the next level, they talk about how those lights, whatever, the incandescent or whatever, they're actually shooting really harmful rays, actually. So it's all like the system. So that's why a tree is going to give you a different vibration than a certain light. And so a lot of people here are like, those lights are just not allowed, because the people are like, no, we don't accept this. Like, you're not putting those lights here. But everybody takes it as a granted, so they don't know what it's like outside. So it's super interesting. And I love the chat about community. But I know you got to run, dude. I wish we had like an hour, 2 hours.
I know, I do as well. Well, I basically want to come and visit you. So sounds so amazing there. So, you know.
Anytime, man. Well, do you want to leave the listeners where they can find you, your work, some last advice from you, or whatever you want to leave on, and we'll schedule another podcast, so we can have a more relaxed talk, not try to jam it in and
yeah, that'd be awesome, because having all our talks about technology, it kind of let us down a bit, didn't it, with my schedule didn't work properly. So yeah, I mean, I would say, one of the things is that I quite like to escape the screens, but I'm also well into using what's available to us. Like, I'm very grateful that I live when we do now. And it's not like I write with sticks and stones and write in the dirt and I don't have an iPhone. I like using technology when possible. And one of the things I think is quite exciting is that with NLP, we talk about doing what works. And you could define NLP as being a study of what works for other people, for yourself, how to communicate with other people and yourself as well. And one of the things that I love doing is tracking. And I would say that if anyone's working on anything in particular, using technology to track what works is a very effective way of actually getting some proper data and some proper feedback. So in the evening, I tend to, I'm a bit of a geek. I have a little spreadsheet that I fill out every evening, but there are loads of apps that do this job as well. And I just, whatever I'm kind of working on at that point, I track a few things. So I might track my energy levels out of 100. And then I might track, did I meditate today? Did I have a certain supplement today? Did I do yoga or work out or go for a walk in nature or do forest bathing or whatever it is? And then after a while, you can use this data and it'll say, on the days that you forest bathe, you've got 4% more energy or whatever it might be. So that'd be the one thing that I would encourage people to look into. And as I say, there's a couple of quite good apps. There's one called Health Mapper that can help you do that if you want to do that. And as far as my podcast goes, it's called Zestology, and my website is TonyWrighton.com. And I'd absolutely love to chat more to you in future and go for some forest bathing at some point.
Yeah, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on, dude. I wish we had more time, but you're awesome. I appreciate everything you're doing. Keep doing the podcast, keep connecting and being who you are. And I support you fully. So we'll stay connected after this. We'll get on another podcast and just keep doing it, man. I appreciate you.
Definitely, man. Same goes for you. Keep all that good energy spreading out in the world. I feel genuinely energized by this conversation. So thank you.
Good, man. Love you, brother. Well, Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll get Tony back on here as soon as we can, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Okay. Cheers, Matt.